How high can Jupiter go in this coming bull cycle? Now, a lot of people have received airdrops this week from Jupiter Exchange, and they're probably wondering whether it's worth holding or selling. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving my price predictions for Jupiter looking at the long term. Now, if you enjoy the video, please do drop a like, subscribe to the channel, but let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. So usually to kick these videos off, I do an overview of what the project is all about. However, on Tuesday of this week, I did a Jupiter Exchange video explaining what it is, more about the airdrop and so on. So if you want more information around that, go and check that video out. But simply put, Jupiter is a DEX aggregator. It is the Uniswap of the Solana ecosystem. And what we'll look at now is some very interesting statistics and numbers post airdrop and post launch. So now we'll have a quick look at this article to cover some key stats since the launch of the Jupiter token. So what we can see here is that Jupiter has come straight in at around an $850 million market cap. Now, price was trading initially at around $2. It's decreased, obviously people selling their airdrops, and it is settling around the 50-60 cent mark, which isn't too bad necessarily for free money, right? Now, when we just scroll through the article, we'll look at a few key stats. It basically talks about where Jupiter is in terms of market caps. Like we said, the 800 million mark, fully diluted at 6.7 billion, down to the current circulating supply, of course. We'll cover all this in much more detail as we go on. It explains a bit about what Jupiter is, being the decentralized exchange, the swapping aggregator, as we just mentioned. And if we scroll down a little bit further, we can see about how big Jupiter is at this moment. So we can see that it is the second largest decentralized exchange with 24-hour trading volume of over 657 million, and it's second only to Uniswap at 788 million. So there's really not a huge difference there, and it shows how big the Solana ecosystem actually is becoming compared to Ethereum and Uniswap. So very, very interesting numbers there. And if we just have a look at this tweet, this is incredible when it comes to the airdrop. We've seen somebody make over $1 million on the Jupiter airdrop, and this wasn't down to just receiving that many tokens in one wallet. We've seen somebody basically farm with over 9,000 wallets. So they had connected and used Jupiter across 9,000 wallets. And looking at the screenshot, it looks like most of them wallets simply received 200 Jupiter, which was the base amount, the lowest tier of the airdrop. But of course, that accumulates on so many wallets, and they have sold 1.4 million Jupiter for around 900k. This is across DEXs, and then they've put some into Bybit and MEXC, around 77k's worth, with around 200k left in the wallet. Now, this may have changed. This was tweeted on Feb 1st. But it's pretty impressive to see how much money can be made on airdrops. Now, granted, not everybody is going to create and farm for a speculative airdrop with 9,000 wallets, but it just shows the potential really is there to make life-changing money in crypto. So now we're going to take a look at the current market cap and the vesting terms, because this is very important for new coins, because of course most of the supply isn't in circulation yet, and that's completely normal. So at the moment, at the time of recording, we've got a market cap of around 830 million with the fully diluted value at around 6 billion, which again is no real surprise or concern for a new token. But we've got an article here breaking down the tokenomics thanks to Blockworks, and it talks about how many tokens are there for the team, the community, and so on. So before we get into that, we're going to look on CryptoRank, and we've got a breakdown here. So 40% is for the team, 10% is in supply due to this week's airdrop, and then 35% is in a cold multi-sig, which is for the future airdrops, which will come annually every January for the next few years, which again is public knowledge. Now, when it comes to the vesting of these tokens, this basically explains that of the 50% of JUP tokens going to the team, only 20% will be given to the current team members, and that will not begin vesting until after 2 years. So this is going into 2026, which for me personally isn't much of a concern, because I expect this bull cycle to top out somewhere in 2025. Now, of course, the rest of the tokens that are set aside for the team, so this could be future team members, future strategic investors, and so on, These tokens may come out earlier, but it is at least a 1-year vest, and there is 6 months notice to basically let the community know that this liquidation event will be happening. So we've got plenty of time to prepare and potentially sell if we're not too bullish about any future events in that situation. So again, not too much of a concern. Then when we flip onto the other side, the community-based tokens, we know that 4 billion Jupiter tokens will be distributed over 4 separate airdrops on January 31st of each year. So this one is a factor when it comes to the circulating supply, because like we said, we're currently at around 13.5% of an unlock, and then you're going to see about another billion tokens come onto the market and bring that up to around 23.5% essentially, with a 10 billion max supply. So that is something that we have to consider, of course, with other little bits and bobs such as the launch pool, other liquidity needs and so on. I'm expecting the circulating supply in 2025 to at least double, if not a little bit more, based on community events around liquidations for future team members, as mentioned. So this is a huge factor that we have to take into consideration when looking at price predictions, because if we went solely off the current circulation, that's going to give a false reading when a bunch of tokens come into supply next year. So now we move on to the competitive landscape, and we're going to make that comparison to Uniswap, which for me is an exciting part of the video because it is a true reflection of how big Jupiter could actually become. So if we look on CoinGecko here, we can see Uniswap at around a $4.6 billion market cap. Now, the big difference to note here is that around 75% of the tokens are currently in circulation, which is a big difference to Jupiter, but to be expected due to how long Uniswap has actually been around. But the true comparison for me is if we look at the market cap, at where it peaked in the last cycle, we can see that it ran all the way to around a $22 billion market cap. So this, in my eyes, is something that we can use to predict how far Jupiter may actually go. Of course, taking into consideration that circulating supply that we just mentioned, but with DEXs only going one way, growing continuously due to people not trusting centralized exchanges, there is also the argument that 22 billion could be actually on the smaller side, the shorter side of where Jupiter and Uniswap could potentially go in this next cycle. Now, when it comes to the potential of Jupiter in that comparison again to Uniswap, we've looked at this article earlier around how Jupiter is actually competing with the numbers of Uniswap, so the volume at 657 million compared to Uniswap's 788 million, so very close. And actually on Sunday, Jupiter actually did more volume than Uniswap for the day. We've seen Jupiter top out at around $480 million of volume, and that was mostly due to the when airdrop as well, but it actually ran $10 million higher than Uniswap over them 24 hours. So it shows that it's definitely competing, it's in the right landscape. It's just whether Jupiter can keep that volume up once the hype slows down. But however, there is no denying that it is a top player in the Solana ecosystem. And something that I usually do is look at the chart and start to evaluate the more recent price action, but because Jupiter's only just launched and there isn't much data to work with, it doesn't really make any sense. However, I'm just going to replace that with an interesting thread that I recently did around the potential of airdrops and holding them. So it was actually using Uniswap as an example because they did an airdrop back in the DeFi Summit of 2020. Now I'll leave the link in the description for you to check this out in more detail, but long story short is that after the airdrop, price ranged at around $3 to $4 and people could have sold their airdrop at around $1,200 to $1,600, which isn't bad. However, due to where we was in the cycle, it was around the Bitcoin halving. We're currently before the Bitcoin halving, and you would argue that the next 12 to 18 months is going to look very bullish for the market as a whole, as we've mentioned. So if people would have held that Uniswap airdrop, it would have peaked at around $17,600. Now, of course, it's very easy to say this in hindsight, but the point is, if you received a Jupiter airdrop, you may want to take profits, but you may also want to consider where we are in the cycle and how big this actually could be. So now we get on to the bit that everybody has been waiting for, the price predictions. Now, with all things considered, I'm going to be basing this over the circulating supply, pretty much doubling by the time we get towards Q2, Q3 of 2025. So, as always, I will give a pessimistic, a realistic, and an optimistic price target. Now, if I'm going to be pessimistic, I think that market cap would reach around the $10 billion mark, which may seem quite big still, of course, but this is genuinely a solid project, and I think it can do that quite easily. Now, this would leave price around the $4 mark based on that circulating supply. Now, if I'm going to be realistic, I think that this could potentially just eclipse the previous market cap of Uniswap in 2021, running it to around 25 billion, which would leave price at around $10. And I think that is probably fair value based on history and based on price action and competitive landscape. And then if I'm going to be really optimistic and we talk about how DEXs are even more as important now as they was back in 2021, this could even run to a $50 billion market cap, and that would leave price at around $20. Now, like I said, that's me being very optimistic. I'm not entirely sure if I can see it going that high, but if you are super bullish on Jupiter, super bullish on DEXs, there's no reason why this wouldn't be in touch. Now, one thing I want to make very clear to wrap this video up is that this is not financial advice. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know for sure where Jupiter is going to go. Now, based on that, what I would say is if you did receive the Jupiter airdrop and it made life-changing money for you in your situation, you should definitely be considering to take that. It doesn't matter how high it could go. It's about taking advantage of free money that you have got. So keep that in mind, that not everybody's situation is the same and people will have different opinions of the future of Jupiter. Now, if you did enjoy the video, please do drop a like, subscribe to the channel, comment and let me know where you think Jupiter can go over these next couple of years. But in the meantime, please do trade safe, invest safe, and I'll catch you in the next one.